everything you need to know to go to Washington, D.C. All right, let's go. The first thing you need to know is just some general information about this city. Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States of America, and it is home to some of the country's most famous landmarks, including the White House, the Capitol Building, and the Lincoln Memorial. There's also a ton of world-class museums and galleries, including the Smithsonian Institution, which is home to 17 of the country's most amazing museums. About 700,000 people live in the city proper, but the metropolitan region that includes Northern Virginia and Maryland is home to about 6 million people. Now, the official name of Washington, D.C. is actually not Washington, D.C., it's actually the District of Columbia, or the district for short, or sometimes the city if you're talking about it in this region. How did we get to Washington, D.C.? Well, District of Columbia seemed to be too long, so they took the D and the C of District of Columbia and put Washington, the last name of our first president, in front of it. Most people just call it Washington, D.C., or DC for short. Now, sometimes people use the acronym the DMV as the DC, Maryland, Virginia region. Now, while most visitors just stop in for a couple days, you could easily spend a whole week here, especially if you're exploring the whole region, particularly if you want to see George Washington's house, Thomas Jefferson's house, or some more things that are farther afield out of the city itself. But in this video, I'll be primarily covering the attractions in the District of Columbia itself. And for all my real government nerds out there, Washington, D.C. isn't a state, it's not part of any state, it's a federal district that was created by the U.S. Constitution, and so it is not represented by the 50 stars that are on the flag of the United States of America. The second thing to know is some information to help you get oriented on this city, and it's a relatively small city at 70 square miles or about 180 square kilometers, so it makes it pretty easy to get around. D.C. is a master plan city with the center of it being the U.S. Capitol Building. There are 4 quadrants around the Capitol Building. You've got northwest, northeast, southeast, and southwest. So every street address in D.C. is going to have a little NW, NE, SE, SW after it to indicate what quadrant it's in. Make sure you get the quadrant right in Google Maps or your Uber app to make sure you're going to the right place, because if you put in the wrong quadrant, you could be in a completely different part of the city than where you actually want to go. As a tourist, you're probably going to be spending most of your time in DC in the northwest quadrant, because that's where most of the major touristy attractions are, including the White House. Now, to help you navigate the city, you should know a little bit about its layout. You'll find lettered streets running east to west. One of the major lettered streets that runs east to west is K Street. You'll find numbered streets running north to south. You'll find diagonal streets that cut through the grid, like this one, Connecticut Avenue. The diagonal streets are typically named after streets, and then in the middle of all those things, you're gonna find circles, just like this one right here. This is DuPont Circle. It's my favorite of all the circles, but the circles are kind of great places to hang out, take a selfie, and if you're here in the winter, DuPont Circle is a great place for snowball fights. The third thing to know is about getting into DC, and there are 3 major airports in the Washington, D.C. area, though none of them are actually in the city itself. The closest airport is Ronald Reagan Airport, 3-letter code DCA. That one is just right across the Potomac River from DC in Arlington. It's like a 10-minute drive into the city. It's connected to the metro, $20 taxi Uber ride to get in. So if you're looking for the closest, fly into Reagan. It is prone to weather delays though, because the runway is so small and it's so busy. The big airport in the DC area is Washington Dulles International Airport. It's about 25 miles to the west of DC. It is United's major hub and where you're going to find a lot of the major international flights coming in and out of. It is now connected to the Metro line on the Silver Line. It takes about an hour to get from Dulles on the Silver Line into the city center, and it'll cost you about $6. If you're gonna take a ride share, expect to spend somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 to $75 for that ride into the city. It'll take somewhere between 30 minutes to an hour driving, depending on traffic. Washington Dulles is generally my airport of choice because it just seems to has the most direct flights into it, and I like that because the runway is really long, it's the least prone to weather delays. And the third major airport is Baltimore Washington International, BWI. It's really more of a Baltimore airport than it is a Washington airport. It is 45 miles to the north of Washington, D.C. You'll find many of the low-cost carriers fly in there, particularly Southwest Airlines. It is my least favorite of the three for coming into D.C. because it's not connected to the D.C. Metro. So your options are a taxi, which will cost you about $100 because it's a long way, or you can take the MARC or Amtrak trains that'll bring you into Union Station. There is a Baltimore train station stop, but you got to take a shuttle from the airport to get to it, and so while it's doable, it's a little bit of a haze. Speaking of the train, that's another great option for getting into DC if you're coming from points north like Philadelphia, New York City, or Boston. Then definitely consider the Amtrak trains. They bring you right into Union Station next to the Capitol building, and so that's pretty convenient if you're already near another train station in one of your previous destinations. It's also a good way to get out of the city if you're connecting to New York after DC. Definitely take the Amtrak. The fourth thing to know is about getting around DC, and one of the best ways to get around DC is simply to walk. It's a super walkable city. In fact, it's been named one of the 10 most walkable cities in the US by whoever ranks those sorts of things. But really, because it's small and compact, the sidewalks are good, the lights really prioritize walking, and you'll find tons of signs everywhere to help you with your directions. Definitely make sure you walk around. Now, the second best way to get around DC is to take the Metro. That's what they call their subway here, and I think the DC Metro is the best subway in the USA. I know there's people in New York who would give me crap for that because they'd say theirs is bigger, but I think the DC subway is cleaner and nicer and overall just a better experience. You pay $2 to $6 per ride based on distance. Get yourself a Smart Trip card to ride it. You can buy them at the vending machines from the stations. You can also buy it on your Apple phone or your Google phone in the Google Wallet app or the Apple Wallet app. You can buy one and add it to that, or you can just buy one digitally straight away. And since the DC Metro is distance-based, you need to tap in and then you tap out, and that's how much you pay. If you're gonna be riding a lot, consider one of their daily or multi-day all-you-can-ride passes. Oh, and if you're a public transportation geek, the DuPont Circle Metro station has one of the longest escalators in the DC Metro system. That's a long way down. I think the longest might be Roslyn, though. That station is really deep. DC Metro also operates a pretty extensive network of buses. They're really designed for commuters and less designed for tourists. Google Maps will let you know if a bus is a good option for you, but there is one particular fleet of buses that particularly run around the touristy things. It's called the DC Circulator. It makes a few short loop routes around DC, really convenient to get from DuPont Circle to Georgetown, and the fares on those are only $1. Cycling is another great option for getting around. You'll find tons of these app-enabled bicycles and scooters that you can rent by the minute. You'll also find Capital Bike Share. They've got over 300 stations around DC, and these are bikes that you dock in a certain place. There's over 3,000 bikes you can take from there. DC's been adding a lot of bike lanes, and so it's a pretty nice bikeable city, particularly when you can just drop off your bike and pick it up again, and you don't have to worry about it getting stolen because it's the city's bike, or the Lime bike in this case. If biking or walking seems like too much energy for you, then you can do a Segway tour. I always see a lot of people out on their Segways out here, and if you've ever wanted to try one, DC's your spot. Now, a lot of people often ask me, Chris, are the double-decker bus tours worth it that run around DC? For most people, I will say no, but if you're mobility limited, then yes, because there's not a lot of great public transit that actually runs you around the National Mall, so that's when these can be useful. Now, you can certainly drive around DC. There are plenty of roads, but I wouldn't really recommend it because traffic is heavy, parking is expensive, almost all of the street parking is metered. If you are driving in and you're looking to park, my recommendation is to use the Spot Hero app. It's a great app where you can search for parking in parking garages at often half the price that you would pay if you pull up. But if you're just pulling up to a parking garage, be aware of the come-on prices, because they'll post a sign out front that says something like $9 to park here, but it's an early bird special, only if you come in by 9 a.m. and leave by a certain time, so definitely be prepared to pay if you're bringing your car into the city. The fifth thing to know is about the weather and when to go. DC gets all 4 seasons, though they're generally mild. In January, it does snow, but not that much. Like this year, I think they only got 1 day of snow, and it generally doesn't drop below freezing for the lows. The summer can definitely be hot and humid and quite oppressive if you're walking around in the sun, although not as bad as someplace like Singapore. The daytime highs in July average around the mid-80s Fahrenheit or about 30 degrees Celsius. Now, one thing to be aware of in the weather is DC gets a lot of rain, like over 40 inches a year, and a lot of it comes in the summer, particularly in the form of afternoon thunderstorms, so make sure you bring an umbrella along with you. All right, so with the weather out of the way, when should you go? Probably not in the summer. It's just too hot and sticky to walk around. All the school kids are here. The hotel prices are crazy. My favorite season is definitely cherry blossom season, which is like March or April. The weather's quite pleasant, and these amazing cherry blossoms bloom around the Thomas Jefferson Memorial and Tidal Basin. That's pretty neat if you can time it right. The other great season to come, I actually think, is winter. If you come in December or January, hotel rates are cheap, and if it does snow, you know, there's a lot of stuff in DC to do that's inside. All the museums, the Capitol, the White House tours, all those things, they're still gonna be open. DC is, other than like schlepping yourself around the National Mall and walking around, a lot of the attractions are inside, so if it's cold, it's okay. It'll make you wanna go inside where it's warm. Now, there are some other times you're gonna want to avoid coming to DC, and that is when the government is in full session, like when Congress and the House are in session. So many people come to DC that it just jacks the room rates right up. So to find a cheap time to come to DC, you know, search for when the federal government is on break, because all those people are gonna be back home and you'll have the city all to yourself. Oh, and by the way, if you come here in the summer, you're gonna hear this sound. The cicadas in the summer can be quite noisy, and the fireflies are pretty neat and beautiful, though those are hard for me to catch on camera. The sixth thing to know is about where to stay, and the first thing you should know is that the hotels in DC, they can really range from price of pretty inexpensive in the winter to really expensive in the summer touristy months. But where I like to stay, location, best location is gonna be in the northwest quadrant near the White House. Use the White House as like your search point and then kind of go out from there. Now, one of my favorite hotels in terms of location and history is the Mayflower. This one, just a few blocks from DuPont Circle on Connecticut Avenue. This hotel has been here for over 100 years. It's been amazingly renovated. Even if you're not staying there, you can go inside, check out the lobby, head up to the mezzanine, and they've got like a little history exhibit about the hotel. It's kind of neat, and if you like high-end hotels, then you'll probably really enjoy the Park Hyatt or the Fairmont. They're like right across the street from each other over on the Georgetown side of things. There's also the Four Seasons, but I don't love the Four Seasons in Georgetown because it's just too far from the metro for my liking. Now, if you're looking at hotels and you find something that's south of the National Mall, I really want you to think twice about it. Particularly the hotels that are south of the National Mall, north of the 395. There's a little strip in there. It's close to the museums, but it's just really dead at night. There's like nothing to do there. There's also some really nice new hotels that are along the southwest waterfront, and there are a lot of things to do at night there, but you end up being a little bit trapped from most of the touristy activities. You'll be doing a lot of Ubering and taxiing around if that's where you're staying. There's also this neighborhood called the National Harbor in Maryland that many people get confused. Since it's National Harbor, it must be in DC. There's a big MGM casino hotel there. There's a Gaylord hotel there. It's a neat neighborhood if you've got business or pleasure in that area, but it's not super convenient for actually coming to DC because the National Harbor is not in any way connected to the DC area Metro public transit. Now, if you're looking to save a little money, my recommendation to you is actually not to stay in DC, but just to stay on the other side of the river in Virginia, either in Arlington or Alexandria. The DC Metro runs out there. Crystal City to Alexandria, there's a metro line that runs down that way, the yellow and the blue line, or up towards Roslyn, Ballston, you can find the Orange Line or the Silver Line out that way. So those are good spots to look at. Just if you don't have a car, make sure you're near the metro, because being able to get around the metro, one of the biggest pluses about DC, so definitely prioritize proximity to a metro station. The seventh thing to know is about food, where to eat and what to eat. So first, let's start with where to eat. And the first thing you need to know on that is that the National Mall area with the museums and the monuments, where kind of like everybody goes, pretty much has no food. There's very little to eat there. It's a bit of a food wasteland. Now, if you are stuck on the National Mall and immediate hunger pains strike you, what are you to do if you don't want to eat a hot dog or out of the food trucks? Check out this Smithsonian right here, the National Museum of the American Indian. They've got a really cool cafeteria inside that has some really great Native American food. Also, the Department of Agriculture, they have a really neat, healthy cafeteria. And you know, one thing about DC and doing videos here, there's always sirens, there's always something going on. And you know what, if you see like a protest or things like that, you know, it's cool. Just maybe go the other way. Other than that, head over to Union Station where I'm sitting right now. There's a neat basement level food court that's pretty big. Although the pandemic hit it and a few of the stalls are closed, it's coming back. There's also a lot of places, sit-down restaurants to eat up on the ground floor. L'Enfant Plaza is pretty good around lunchtime. That's just to the south of the National Mall. Other than that, some other great neighborhoods to look for food. Chinatown has a lot of really great food options. Not for the Chinese food. Chinese food isn't great there, but the other food eateries are pretty good. If you are looking for Chinese food, you should actually head out of the city itself and head into Virginia to George Bush's favorite Chinese restaurant. It's also mine. They're famous for their Peking duck. It's called the Peking Gourmet Inn. If you like Peking duck, search that place out. You'll thank me later. Now, one Chinese restaurant that is worth checking out in Chinatown is Chinatown Express. They make some really good noodles, but it's even funny. The sign they have here tells you Chinatown doesn't boast many Chinese restaurants, but Chinatown Express is a good one. And for my international visitors, you should be aware of sales tax in DC. The advertised price on the menu is not the price you're gonna pay. You're gonna pay 10% more in sales tax on top of the price on the menu, and then you'll be expected to pay somewhere between 15 to 20% tip at sit-down restaurants where you got waiter service. You know, if you're over at Chick-fil-A on the counter, you don't need to give them a tip. Now, if you're in the mood for a sandwich, I've got a couple of suggestions for you. Number one, if you want a really fast sandwich, stop by Pret. Pret is originally from the UK, but they have a lot of locations around DC. They have these pre-packaged, pre-made sandwiches that they make all of them in the store. They're really quite delicious, and so that's a really quick grab and go option. If you want a little bit more prepared option, check out Potbelly subs. They also make them to order, but generally most of them are hot and they're super delicious. I really like the chicken and cheddar sandwich at Potbelly. When I lived in the DC area, I would eat at Potbelly about once a week. Now, one of my favorite spots to eat at is Moby Dick House of Kebab. I love this place so much, I come here almost every time I come to DC. What do I like to get here? I like to get the combo number 2. It comes with one chicken kebab and one kubedek kebab. In the center, some of the most pillowy, buttery rice you've ever eaten. They make the flatbread fresh in-house with some yogurt sauce that comes with it. Overall, super delicious. You'll find a couple locations in DC. This one right near Dubont Circle and another location in Georgetown. If you're in the mood for some chicken, check out Nando's Peri Peri. It is a Portuguese-style rotisserie chicken joint. What does that mean? It means it's spicy rotisserie chicken. Cava is super popular in the DC area for people who like healthy food, which isn't really me, but they serve Mediterranean bowls, kind of like Chipotle style, where you like go down the line and tell them what you want on it. They've been expanding more and more locations and often long lines at lunchtime. If you like steak, my favorite steakhouse is Mastro Steakhouse. Make a reservation and you're gonna need proper attire, no shorts and t-shirts. And if you're looking for someplace where the whole family can eat, check out the Luna Hall Food Hall. This is a new food hall that just opened in Chinatown. They got a lot of little Asian stalls in there to fill anybody's tummy. If you're looking for some of DC's best burgers, you'll find them at Five Guys, which started in DC. There's a lot of outposts of Shake Shack here now, and I also like the burgers at Good Stuff Eatery. And if you must have some Mexican food while you're in DC, my DC friends all tell me they really like District Taco. I wouldn't know, California boy, I can't eat Mexican food here. Oh, and if you like cupcakes in Georgetown, you're in luck. There are 3 really good cupcake places in Georgetown. 1, Georgetown Cupcake, the Georgetown original. 2, Sprinkles, the import from Los Angeles. And 3, my favorite, it's called Baked and Wired. Try all 3 out if you want the cupcake trifecta. The thing to know is about shopping, and there's actually not a lot of shopping in downtown DC. The most famous mall in the city is the National Mall, this grassy strip that runs from the Capitol building to the Washington Monument to the Lincoln Memorial. That's what's called the National Mall. There are no shops here. Actually, there are some shops in here. In the museums, the gift shops are actually pretty good places to get souvenirs, but beyond that, where should you shop? DC's other big upscale shopping area is Georgetown. You'll find a lot of high-end clothing retailers along M Street. And kind of my favorite area for shopping for like more local goods is around DuPont Circle. Not the circle itself, but the neighborhood. I mean, you still even find some independent bookstores there. One of the newest and most upscale shopping areas in the city is City Center, DC. This complex takes up a few city blocks. It's got the likes of Louis Vuitton, Hermes, Tiffany. You'll also find a number of restaurants here and some cool outdoor eating in their Center Plaza. You'll find this a couple blocks from Chinatown. If you've got a sweet tooth, check out Un Je sais quoi. How's my French? They make some really delicious French pastries here. In particular, some special meringue pastries that I find them really tasty, and it's right next to DuPont Circle. And the 9th thing to know is about museums, and you definitely need to know about the Smithsonian Institution. They're the operator of 17 museums and galleries in the city, primarily on the National Mall, and all of them are free. If you see the sign that says Smithsonian, that is free. This is the visitor center for the Smithsonian, so if you're looking for a particular thing, you can go in there and ask them, but that's not a museum in and of itself. One of my favorites is the National Air and Space Museum, just down that way. It's currently under like a big construction project. It is open. They have a second location over by Washington Dulles Airport, so if you're a real air and space nerd, check that out if you're flying in and out of Dulles. Another one of my favorite Smithsonians is the National History Museum right here. Just a whole bunch of cool like dinosaurs and fossils and all those sorts of things. Now, just because the Smithsonian's are free doesn't mean all museums in DC are free, like the Spy Museum. That's a private one, that costs money. But I think the fact that there's so much free stuff to do makes DC actually a pretty cheap destination. Some of them you do have to go through like metal detectors and things like that to go in, and do beware of their opening and closing times. They close pretty early, most of them around 5 p.m. And while there's not much in the way of public transportation up and down the National Mall, it will get you here. Just take the Metro Silver, Yellow, or Blue line to the Smithsonian Station. If you like plants, definitely check out the U.S. Botanic Garden. It's right below the U.S. Capitol building. There's a conservatory inside here, this building, that's open until 5 p.m. If you're here in the summer, then this gated outdoor garden is open until 7 p.m. So this is something neat to do after the rest of the museums close on their museum hours. The 10th thing to know is about the other big federal attractions and monuments and memorials here. First, we'll start with the big buildings, the White House and the Capitol building. Yes, they are open for tours for the public. You have to make reservations in advance. The Capitol building, you can make them online. You can turn up the day of. They'll distribute tickets. Go to the visitor center that is on the back side of the Capitol building to actually go in and go through the security check. The White House, you need to reserve significantly more ahead, often through your like congressional representative. That one is not quite as straightforward. And if you do get in there, honestly, I felt like the tours of the White House are underwhelming as compared to the tours of the Capitol building. At the Capitol building, if Congress is in session, you can actually like go in and listen to Congress or listen to the House, and so that's pretty cool. Speaking of monuments, the one you're gonna have to reserve a ticket for is the Washington Monument right here, because there's actually an elevator that you can take to go right up at the top. They distribute timed tickets the day of in this little white building down here starting at 8:45 every morning. Though if you are getting a same day ticket, get here early because they do run out. You can also book tickets online 30 days ahead of time. or the day before. Oh, and you know what? They call these tickets for the Washington Monument free. They actually charge you $1 to make the reservation ahead of time. Now, on the subject of memorials, there are a ton of memorials in DC. A couple of the most famous, the Lincoln Memorial here at the end of the reflecting pool, the Thomas Jefferson Memorial over that way by the tidal basin, and not a memorial, but a big cemetery. The Arlington National Cemetery is just across the bridge from the Lincoln Memorial, and you can see the daily changing of the guards there at the tomb of the unknown soldier. Oh, and if you're coming here in the summer, there are a lot of mosquitoes with the humidity, so make sure to bring your mosquito repellent. I've got a lot of bug bites already. I regret not putting on my mosquito repellent. Those are gonna itch tonight. Now, another thing that the National Mall doesn't have in addition to food is public restrooms. Well, all the museums have public restrooms, so you can use those when they're open. But if you're walking here like at 7 o'clock, after all the museums are closed, you're gonna find almost no public restrooms from the Capitol building to the Washington Monument. That's where you're gonna find public restrooms again. If you need them in a pinch, there's some right here around the Washington Monument. You'll also find some in the Lincoln Memorial and the Jefferson Memorial. Now, if you're really into Abraham Lincoln, Ford's Theater still stands. You can go inside and even see shows in it. That is where Abraham Lincoln was shot and killed, but he later died in this house across the street. Sign right there that says this is the house that Abraham Lincoln died in. You do need tickets to take a tour of that, and it's right next to like the Abraham Lincoln Museum. Also on the street, you're gonna find all of DC's tackiest souvenir shops and the Lincoln Waffle Shop. But definitely while you're by Ford's Theater, check out the headquarters for the FBI that I'm sure you've seen in so many movies. Though definitely whatever government stuff you plan to do, make sure it's actually open when you come. You probably noticed at the beginning of this video, the Capitol building's under construction. Lots of DC's under construction. And you know, there's sort of government timelines for repairing things. There's a carousel here on the National Mall, and it's under construction for the next 3 years to return in 2026? Yeah, the Washington Monuments elevator, that thing was closed for years for refurbishment too, so make sure the things you want to go to are actually open. And the 11th thing to know is that there's so much more to do in DC than just the museums and the government stuff. There is a whole city around here, and so make sure you get out beyond the National Mall and explore all that DC has to offer. Some of my favorite neighborhoods for you to check out, I've already hit it, DuPont Circle. It's more than just a circle, it's a whole neighborhood around the circle. You can take the metro here and just explore around. I really love the shops and the eateries around DuPont Circle. Check out Penn Quarter. It's near the National Mall, probably the closest. Chinatown is also a cool, vibrant neighborhood where you can pick up a hockey game as well. If you are off the beaten path south a little bit, the neighborhood around the ballpark has really had a lot of buildup around it. Check out a Nationals baseball game while you're there. Hit up Georgetown for the high-end shopping and the restaurants. Head up this way to U Street. U Street is the historic African-American section of DC. Make sure you get yourself a chili half smoke from Ben's Chili Bowl, a classic institution. Now, speaking of the Potomac River, there's a lot of cool walks to do along the Potomac here in Georgetown. This is like the Georgetown waterfront. There's actually like a Latin music dancing class going on tonight for summer, but there are paths that'll run along the Potomac most of the length of DC and most of the length of the Virginia side too. If you want to do a short loop, you can walk here from Georgetown to the bridge right there. That's behind the Lincoln Memorial over into the Arlington National Cemetery, and then you can take a path along that side. This little thing right here in front of Roslyn, this is called Theodore Roosevelt Island. It's like a nature preserve. You can walk around there and then come back along the Key Bridge right there. Now, when you're in Georgetown, also definitely make sure to check out the C&O Canal. It is between M Street and the waterfront, and this canal they used to use for shipping things in and out of DC. They've got some old replica boats in here that you could see are the things that would come up and down this canal, and they've also got some replica locks that you can see how they could make the boats go upstream too. The water still runs here, and I think the locks might still function. I mean, I don't know if they use them anymore, but it's just interesting to see this like maritime shipping history of our country. All right, now in addition to all those attractions, I have a few favorite walks through DC that I want to share with you. One of my favorite walks is to walk through Georgetown, but because there's no metro here, I have a couple of ways that I like to walk through Georgetown. One, I like to take the metro to DuPont Circle and then go down P Street into Georgetown. You get to like see all of the cool houses, and then you can walk down M Street all the way back to Connecticut Avenue, or shorter to Foggy Bottom or someplace like that if you just want to get a quick metro. The other kind of cool walk through Georgetown is to take the metro to Roslyn on the Virginia side, walk across the Key Bridge, down M Street, and then you can pick up the metro again at Foggy Bottom. Another one of my favorite walks starts here in downtown DC at Farragut Square, just a couple blocks from the White House, and it walks down Connecticut Avenue, one of the diagonal streets. The Metro Red Line runs right under Connecticut Avenue, and you can take it all the way to the Smithsonian Zoo. Great to check out the pandas, and then take the metro back from there, because there's a red Metro Line zoo stop. If you want to add a little zigzag in there, then you can take a zigzag to check out the Adams Morgan neighborhood while you're on your way. And another great place to walk, and even bike ride it seems, is along the National Mall. There's sidewalks on either side, but there's these kind of dirt areas that run the length of it, and at summertime, the National Mall just becomes like a huge park for DC residents. They're out here playing Frisbee, playing dodgeball, all sorts of things, and that sign says they've got free vegan popsicles. I might just go check those out. You know what? There really were free vegan popsicles there. Courtesy of PETA, the People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. Grape. Tasty. And the last thing to know is there's even more Yellow Productions videos on Washington, D.C. You'll find links here on the screen or in the description below to my entire D.C. travel series. Well, as usual, fellow explorers, I won't say goodbye because I'm going to see you in one of those videos.